And reading this morning comes to us from the Gospel according to John, chapter 15, beginning at verse 26. And here Jesus is speaking. When the advocate comes, whom I will send to you from the Father, the Spirit of truth who comes from the Father, he will testify on my behalf. You also are to testify because you have been with me from the beginning. I did not say these things to you from the beginning because I was with you. But now I'm going to him who sent me. Yet none of you asks me, where are you going? But because I have said these things to you, sorrow has filled your hearts. Nevertheless, I tell you the truth. It is to your advantage that I go away. For if I do not go away, the advocate will not come to you. But if I go, I will send him to you. And when he comes, he will prove the world wrong about sin and righteousness and judgment. About sin, because they do not believe in me. About righteousness, because I am going to the Father, and you will see me no longer. About judgment, because the ruler of this world has been condemned. I still have many things to say to you, but you cannot bear them now. When the Spirit of truth comes, he will guide you into all the truth. For he will not speak on his own, but will speak whatever he hears, and he will declare to you the things that are to come. He will glorify me, because he will take what is mine and declare it to you. All that the Father has is mine. For this reason I said that he will take what is mine and declare it to you. The word of the Lord. 15 years ago or so in New York City, a man was walking home from work one evening when he made a fateful decision. He decided to walk down one side of the street instead of the other. Unfortunately for him, a gang had set up an ambush on the side of the street that he chose to walk down. The gang members came from another borough in New York and planned to kill a random person as an initiation rite. These 5 gang members attacked the man with knives and left him for dead on the street. But he didn't die. Rescue workers arrived and rushed him to the hospital. Meanwhile, he remained conscious during the ordeal, and not without some humor. He noted that his injuries were so bad that the police handed his case over to the homicide department before he was wheeled into surgery. Evidently, they were trying to cut down on paperwork, he said. Still, the surgeon did not give up on him so easily and operated throughout the night. And after 2 complete blood transfusions and the surgeon was done, he was sent to recovery. Once he regained consciousness, he was asked about his insurance information, and he said his information was that he had none. So the hospital gave him a bottle of pain meds, told him to come back in 2 weeks to have his stitches checked, and sent him home. His mom, mercifully, was there and took him back to his family home out of state. Unfortunately, as he was riding in a car with his brother, explaining what had happened to him, his brother became so overwrought with emotions about the attack, he didn't notice that their sister, who was driving in the car in front of them, had stopped in the road. And they ran into their sister at 60 miles an hour and sent him flying through the windshield, where he landed on the pavement. His stab wounds had been so painful he had not been able to fasten his seatbelt. Again, he was rushed to the hospital where the nurse quipped, "So, weren't wearing a seatbelt, were you?" He said, "No, I was not. Just stitch me up, okay? Get me out of here." Well, finally, this man returned to New York. His answering machine was full of angry calls from customers wondering why he hadn't completed their orders. He was in constant pain. He oozed from every stitch in his body. He had horrible nightmares. every night, in which he would alternately be attacked with knives and then find himself flying through a car windshield. Not having a good week. And now I am wondering how closely you were paying attention to this story. It took me a while, but it finally dawned on me what was so unusual about it. What an incredible gift, what an insight this story offers us. Now, I don't know if it was an intentional act or not, but did you notice it? Did you notice what was so strange about this story? Anyone? Well, let me ask you two details about this story, and maybe you will see it too. Was the gang that attacked the New Yorker in this story white, black, or Latino? Second question, is the New Yorker in this story white, black, or Latino? I have no idea. I heard this entire story on a radio podcast, and it occurred to me later that he never gave any indication of anything of that nature. Friends, this is truly amazing to me. Our society is so quick to typecast people and take sides on each other's stories based on one another's race, immigration status, whatever, anything like that. And yet this New Yorker never got caught up in that. So with all, or at least most, of the lightning rod issues out of this story, not included in this story, we can finally ask the question that I have longed to ask, but never seem to be able to reach, because people get caught up in all the other issues and tune me out. Well, hopefully you haven't tuned me out yet. Shortly after the New Yorker in our story returned to New York, he received a call from the assistant district attorney, who wanted him to testify in court against one of the attackers whom they had actually caught. Now, the New Yorker wanted nothing to do with it. He was moving on with his life. He just wanted to put the attack behind him. But the DA insisted. If he didn't testify, then this gang member would appear before the judge, who would see a scared young man. It would be reported that the man he attacked had survived. And plus, he would undoubtedly have a true and heartbreaking story about a hard childhood. No, the DA told him it was important for the judge to hear the horrors of the attack, so that the judge did not feel unduly sorry for the attacker. So this New Yorker went to court to tell the story. He wanted this gang member who had attacked him to know the pain that he had caused. Yet every time he saw himself confronting his attacker in his mind, every time he ran through that scenario, he saw this young man staring back at him, stone-faced, thinking to himself, well, I made your life cruddy, did I? Well, my life's cruddy now. My life will always be cruddy. Welcome to the cruddy world. Well, when he got to court, it was just as he envisioned. He saw the young man who had been one of his attackers, and first of all, he's overwhelmed with this desire just to hop over that railing and just strangle this guy for all he had done. And also, though, just as he imagined, this young man was all alone. There was no one outside of the court-appointed attorney in his corner. Whatever demographic he represented, there was no one with him, not even a family member. No one, no interest group, no rights organization wants to stand up for a person who would commit such a random act of violence with the intent to kill just for an initiation rite. Don't you understand? We are all, each and every one of us here, on the same side in this story. We are all standing with this New Yorker who was attacked. The young man who attacked him deserves no one to stand with him. There is no mitigating circumstance to give us pause, to make us think that there may be some reason that this attacker deserves someone to stand with him. I would argue that with all the lightning rod issues absent from this story, we can all agree that this young attacker in no way, shape, or form deserves anyone by his side. And now, with us all hopefully in agreement, I can ask my question. In my mind, this attacker deserves to be sentenced to the full extent of the law. He deserves to be punished for his crime. And he in no way deserves to have anyone stand with him. My question then, the one I have longed to ask for years, is this: how can the church, in fact, stand with this attack? Friends, this is no easy question. And it is a question that the world will never understand. Whenever I try to ask this question, people will get angry. And they start to tell me why the person in question doesn't deserve anyone to stand with them. What the world doesn't understand is that the church gets it. We know that. The church understands that many people, like the attacker in our story, in no way deserves an advocate. What we also understand, though, is that neither do we. In truth, the attacker in our story no more deserves an advocate from the church than the church deserves an advocate from God, the Holy Spirit. Jesus Christ, you see, was the penultimate innocent man who walked on this earth for us. Yet he was ambushed in the Garden of Gethsemane. He had told his disciples that if they did not take up their cross and follow him to Golgotha, they were not worthy of him. They did not. Jesus told his disciples that anyone who denied him before others would deny before God. Peter denied him 3 times. Yet despite their complete unworthiness and denials, Jesus does not deny them, but instead promises to send the advocate, the Holy Spirit, to be with them, to always be in their corner, despite their unworthiness. Friends, we are no more worthy or deserve this advocate from God than the disciples. And yet we receive this free gift of God's grace, this free gift that God gave boldly and courageously to us. Dare we act so courageously? Do we have the courage to act boldly, to be an advocate for the man who attacked this New Yorker? The New Yorker did. Don't get me wrong, this New Yorker, this man who had been attacked, did not ask the judge to be lenient or accept a sad story from the attacker as an excuse. Yet despite his initial desire to strangle his attacker when he saw him in court, he wanted to somehow get to this young man. He wanted him to understand what he had done in a profound way, not a vengeful way. He didn't want to get back at him. He wanted to get through to him. So this New Yorker stood before the judge and his attacker and told his story. He didn't hold it back or clean it up. He told him, this attacker, that he would serve the mandatory sentence of 15 years of prison time for this attack. Yet he should have been facing a mandatory 25 years of prison time for murder Yet, through no credit to him, he, the victim, had survived the attack and did not die. Thanks to the work of the EMTs, the surgeon who operated on him, and his own refusal to give up, he had not died. And the attacker was not facing, therefore, a murder charge. This New Yorker told his attacker that no thanks to him, he, even as a victim, had been given a new chance at life, and it was going to make the best of it. So in 15 years, not 25, when he got out of prison, the New Yorker wanted this young man to do one thing for him. He wanted him, on that day when he got out of prison, to remember that he had just received 10 years of life outside of prison that he did not in any way deserve. What was he going to do with that free gift? Such is grace, the grace of God. As he finished his testimony, the New Yorker said that he himself, he was in tears, and that his attacker, who had his hand handcuffed behind his back, was beating his head on the table with tears flowing out of his eyes. I like to think, the New Yorker said later, that I got through to him. Let the church be so bold and have such courage to be an advocate for those who, like us, in no way deserve. Let all God's people